The eighth law is the law of intuition. And the law of intuition says, basically, leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. Now, let me say something about this law, the law of intuition. This is so important. In fact, let me say this. The best leaders, when I shared with you on one of the other leadership laws, the law of process, about our leaders born, and I told you that some people are born with leadership leanings, let me just say this. Of all the 21 laws, this law is most closely associated with people that have what I call leadership leanings. If there's a law for, quote, the natural born leader, it's the law of intuition and it's the law of timing. Because those are the two most difficult laws to learn. They're the two most difficult laws to teach. And so therefore, while I'm teaching them to you, I want you to understand, I realize I have a major task in front of me for the next few minutes. And the reason they're the most difficult to teach is because intuitiveness and timing are very subjective. And only people that have natural leadership bents naturally pick them up. So if you don't have natural leadership bents, you can learn to be intuitive, but it's going to be a long process. I promise you that. But let me give you the flip side for a moment. Probably no law of leadership puts a leader at an advantage more than the law of intuition. And let me tell you why. In the law of intuition, basically, it allows you, the law of intuitiveness allows you as a leader to see things and sense things more quickly than anyone else, and it gives you a distinct advantage of a leader. Let me give you an example of that. I can win a 100-yard race against the fastest human being in the world if there is a condition. Look at this body. There has to be a condition. I can run a 100-yard race against the fastest human being in the world if I get a 50-yard head start. And I just want to stop here for a moment and say I have carefully considered the 50-yard head start. And I'm starting to say I maybe need a 60-yard head start. And you say, well, of course you can win the race. Of course you can win the race if you have a 50-yard head start. It's the whole point of the law of intuition. You know what the law of intuition is? The law of intuition gives you a head start on everybody else. In other words, it allows you to win the race. The fastest person doesn't win the race in leadership. It's the person who got started quickest. Understand that. And the law of intuition gives you what I call the leadership jump start. It allows you, it allows me to get going before anyone else can get going, and therefore we get to the finish line first. And somebody says, well, how did you get to the finish line? Are you the fastest? No, I'm not the fastest. It's not the fastest, it's the first in leadership. And what you have to understand is the law of intuition allows you to be first. So, let me see if I can do a good job teaching this law. The first statement I want to make is this one. In intuitiveness and in intuition, it's important for you to understand who you are, because in the area of intuitiveness, here's the way this works. Who you are determines what you see. In other words, if I'm a leader, I see everything through leadership eyes. If I'm a navigator, I see everything through a navigator's eyes. In other words, you and I see not what is, we see by who we are. Classic example is every once in a while I'll do something that's way out of my gift zone, just for an experience. I had a wonderful friend who loved nature. And I remember we used to go on hikes together. His name was Paul. And Paul would say, oh my goodness, did you see that bird? Did you see that ground? And he'd talk about all these things, and no, I didn't see it. Well, Paul said, it was right there. It was right over there. Didn't you see it? No, I didn't see it. Why did Paul see all of nature and I didn't see a lot of nature? Because intuitively, that's who he is. He's a nature lover. I'm just a Mr. Magoo walking through the field, not having a clue what's happening. Who you are determines what you see. For example, my gift is communication. I do communicating almost every day of my life. And so whenever I have to communicate, whether it's in training sessions like this or in major auditoriums and stadiums across the country, it doesn't matter. I'm not nervous. I'll be honest with you, I just don't get nervous. People say, well, are you uptight? No, I'm not uptight. I'm going to go out and do what I love to do with people I love to do it with. And I'm going to have a great time. And so I enjoy it. Why? Why? Because it's my gift. My wife, Margaret, who in her earlier years was a school teacher by profession, communication is not her gift. And I always hate it when somebody, because, they say, well, would you come and speak to us? Ask Margaret to come and speak to us, because if they ask Margaret to come and speak to them, I know what's going to happen. She's going to come to me. She's going to say, John, they want me to speak over here. What should I say? Now, let me just stop here for a moment. If you don't know what to say, communication is not your gift. What do I say? So over the years, because we've been happily married for well over 30 years now, she knows that no longer does she come and ask me what to say, because I say, Margaret, So now she'll say, okay, don't tell me what to say. She said, just tell me, how do I get started? How do you get started? And like maybe she's going to go speak at a banquet, I'll say, well, just kind of listen to what people say before you speak and play off of them. And somebody says something, you get up and you just start talking about that. And she hates that answer. Well, I'm not trying to confuse her, and I'm certainly not trying to frustrate her. It's how I do it. Why would I do it that way? It's my gift. It's who I am. Now, let me flip it for a moment. Let's talk about clothes. You don't know anybody as bad at matching clothes as me. I mean, I have this clothes closet, and I have been known to go into my clothes closet, close the door, and just stare at stuff. For 15 minutes, paralyzed. I'm a leader. I'm paralyzed. Kind of drools coming down my mouth. Mary will say, John, are you in the closet? Yeah. You need help, don't you? Yeah. And she'll come in and say, what are you doing? And I'll tell her what I'm doing. And she'll say, oh, wear this sweater, these slacks, and this shirt. And she'll put everything together. And she'll throw it kind of to me, kind of like I'm a piece of garbage or something. I'm a beggar collecting things. Oh, thank you. And she looks at me, and she'll tell me at the same time, she said, John, why haven't you figured this out yet? Because she'll go into the same, she'll try to help me with colors, and she'll tell me all these principles and all these laws of the clothes closet. And she can't figure out why I can't get it. Well, I can't get it because it's not who I am. It's not my gift. I'm not intuitive in that area at all. Now, what I do is, when she'll say, okay, this sweater and these slacks match, what I'll do a lot of times is, when I'm done, I'll put the sweater and the slacks on the same hanger. And the shirt, and I'll get it, and so I'm just set, because this is really great, because then I know, sometime when I don't have time to ask her, I'll just put them on. And so maybe a week later, I'll go in and put the outfit she gave me a week before on, and I'll be so excited, because I know they match. And I'll walk out, and as soon as she sees me, she'll look at me, she'll say, are you wearing that again? Well, yeah. I could wear the same thing every day and be a happy man. Oh, she said, that's so boring. She said, you wore that last week. Don't do that. She said, people will see you. She'll go in and she'll take the same sweater and put it with the different slacks and different shirt. And I know she does that just to mess with my mind. And it works. And I'm totally confused. Or I love it. Sometimes I'll get dressed and I'll sneak out of the house before she's up, and I'll come back and I'll walk in the house and she'll look at me and she'll say, did you wear that? It's on my body. And she's saying, did I wear that? No, I'm buck naked. It's a mirage that you see here. Or I want to say, no, I had a good outfit. I changed in the garage before I came in the house just to mess you up. Now, what you have to understand is, Margaret still, to this day, can't figure out how I can't figure it out. It's not who I am. Here's what I want you to understand, and here's the key point. You're intuitive in the area of your giftedness. So whatever you're gifted in, you're intuitive in. And leaders are readers. They have the ability to read a situation. Why? Because they have some leanings in giftedness and intuitiveness in the area of leadership. So they see everything through the leadership grip. And what do leaders read and what do leaders sense? Since leaders are readers, what are they? Leaders are readers, number one, of people. They have the ability to see people. Not only just see people, but to understand where they are. Classic example, when I'm in a conference, if Margaret, my wife, happens to be with me, sometimes at the end of the conference, she'll say, a guy came up to you in that gray sweater. What was he talking to you about? I don't have a shot. I don't remember anybody coming up in a gray sweater. I don't remember anything that anybody wore. And she'll say, the guy with the gray sweater, the guy with the gray sweater. I don't remember the guy with the gray sweater. Why? Because she's very color conscious. I'm not conscious. If I could figure it out, I could tell her who was that talked to me and basically what they said. But see, I'm a reader of people. I'm not reading what you wear. I'm reading where you're going and who you are and what you're thinking and where you are in the group of people. Leaders are readers of people. They have a sense of where people are and how people feel and how people think and how people are responding. They pick up on that. Their leaders are readers of opportunities. Oh my goodness. They see an opportunity coming. In fact, they're kind of amazed. They look around and say, doesn't anybody else see this opportunity? Am I the only one that's getting on the opportunity bus? And they are. They get on the opportunity bus, and everybody else, they're around the depot, having a croissant, you know what I mean? They don't have a clue. They don't even see the bus. Leaders are readers of opportunities. Thirdly, leaders are readers of the environment. They have a sense of what's happening in the environment around them, and they can feel things. Number four, they're readers of timing. They understand the ebb and flow of timing and when to seize the moment as they can and when to let the moment go. Number five, they're readers of motives. They have the ability a lot of times to not only see what a person does, but have a sense of why they do it. They're readers of the future. I'm not talking about some kind of a person with a crystal ball, but they have a sense of what's coming around the corner. They can sense what's approaching and what's up in front of them. Number seven, leaders are readers of the placement of people. They know where to put people. They have a sense of what people's giftedness are, and so they kind of say, I think they would maximize their potential in this position. And finally, I think leaders are readers of the process. They understand process well. They understand that it not only it takes a while for them to develop in a daily sense, but they also realize it takes time for people. And they can kind of look at people and know where they are on their journey and how far they are from becoming the leader perhaps that person wants to be. But here's what I know. Leaders are readers of people. And the law of intuition basically says that if you can be intuitive, you get a head start. Now, one more comment before I go to the next law. If you find that this isn't a strength of yours, and many of you will be very frustrated with this law because it's a little bit subjective, I would just suggest a couple of things to you. One is find an intuitive leader and hang out with them. Because I have found that if you hang out with an intuitive leader and ask them questions about why they did this or why they said that or why they went there, that many times they'll give you a read of how they can see things. And if they give you a read of how they can see things, they'll begin to teach you to see those same things. I would say, secondly, also, is lead out of your gift mix. Whatever your strength is where your intuition is. So therefore, for example, when you get to the law of navigation, if you're a good navigator, like Chuck is, it's very simple. What you do is you start leading out of the day-to-day navigating with people, and you'll find that you're very intuitive in that area. Stay to your strengths, because it's in your strengths that you can lead people effectively. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the 9th law is the law of magnetism. And the law of magnetism says, who you are is who you attract. Let's do an exercise. Since this is a training in leadership type of an exercise, I realize that maybe you'll even want to turn off the tape for a few minutes and do this on your own before you proceed. But let's do an exercise. What I want you to do is I want you to write down the top 3 qualities in people that you would like to attract to your organization. Now, as you write down the top 3 qualities of people that you would like to attract, I'm going to just take a time out for a second and let you do that. In a moment, I'm going to come back and I'm going to let you look at those 3 qualities, and I want to do my teaching from what you put on paper. Now that you're back, let's look at those three qualities that you have placed on the piece of paper. I want you to look at them because whatever three qualities that you have placed on your paper, what I want you to understand is this. You won't attract people because these are three qualities of people that you want to attract. You will only attract people of these qualities if you possess these qualities yourself. For example, on my piece of paper, I said if I'm going to bring people around me, I want to bring people that have leadership abilities, I want to bring people that have integrity, and I want to bring people that have a great attitude. Now, those are three important things to me. Integrity, attitude, leadership abilities. Those are the kind of people I want to attract. Now that I put my list down of the three qualities of people I want to attract, the question I've got to ask myself is not where are those people? The question I've got to ask myself is, do I possess those qualities? Because if I possess those qualities, if I'm a good leader, if I have a great attitude, if I'm a person that's filled with integrity, if I possess those qualities, I'll attract people because like begets like. So every once in a while, what I do is I run into leaders and they'll say something like this. They'll say, John, I need a person of high energy in my company. Boy, we need some initiative, high energy people in my company. And whenever they say that, I look at them and say, let me ask you a question. What's the question? Do you have high energy? And do you take initiative? Because if you do, I got good news for you. You'll attract people like that. But can I tell you something? If getting out of bed is a challenge every day, you understand? And you need a nap in the afternoon. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to attract a lot of high-energy people. Because high-energy people don't look around and say, man, do we need to find somebody that's slow and lazy. If I can just see somebody that's moving, but you can't tell they're moving, that's the kind of person I want to be around. No. Like begets like. Al McGuire, who's now passed away, who was a very successful basketball coach for many, many years at Marquette University, had a statement that I just love. In fact, I like it so well, I put it in your notes. He said, a team should be the extension of the coach's personality. My teams were arrogant and obnoxious. And let me tell you something, he was. And that's what his teams were. In other words, he put himself, who he was, became who the teams were themselves. This is just an absolute fact. It works in your life, and it works also in my life. I was doing a leadership conference, and we were, again, in a question and answer period, and a fellow raised his hand, and I said, what do you want? And he said, I love this leadership stuff you're teaching. And he said, I've got a question. He said, he was a young kid again. He said, I've decided I'm going to be a leader, which was nice. Okay. He said, the question I have for you is, who should I start leading? And I looked at him and I said, the first person you should lead is yourself. Yourself. In fact, let me put it this way. If you wouldn't follow yourself, why should anyone else follow you? Now, this goes back to this law of magnetism. What are you and who are you on the inside? Because here's what I want you to say. You're going to attract people just like you. So what I would do as a leader is this. When I defined and understood the 3 or 4 or 5 top qualities of people that I wanted to attract to my organization, I would make sure 2 things. One, that I had those qualities in my life, and if I did not, I would make sure that I began to discipline myself to have those qualities in my life. Because who you are is who you attract. That's the way it works. It works that way every time. It works that way in the business community. I have the privilege of being with many companies, organizations, and corporations, and can I tell you, they all have a personality. When I'm out with the Walmart people, these are people that get up early, and these are people that love numbers and figures. If you go to one of their early morning, Saturday morning meetings, not during the week, they do theirs on Saturday morning, they get all the stats from all the regions all over the country of how their Walmart stores are doing, and they're up early, and they're beating those numbers, and they're putting them up there, and they're saying, you made it, you didn't make it, you were short this week, and this is how quickly. They love accountability, and they love getting up and doing something just early and making sure that, you know, they're kind of the early bird gets the worm kind of a mindset. Now, that's who Walmart is. That's a culture. And they attract. What kind of people they attract? They attract those kind of people. I go with other companies, and they love to study. They just love to learn and grow, and they're kind of, they have a growing personal growth type of a culture and environment in them. And as long as they're growing and as long as they're learning, they know if they can grow themselves, they're growing their company. So they want a lot of meat. They want to keep saying, okay, how can I develop myself? And they're always wanting programs to develop themselves. Now, what I'm saying is every organization has its own personality, but here's what I know. The culture of that organization determines the kind of people that they attract to it. What I have found is that there are some key areas of attraction. In other words, what I want to do is I want to define for you certain areas that the law of magnetism I know works for a fact. For example, number one, your mission. Your mission of your company attracts a certain type of a person. That's an absolute fact. And when you put your mission out, can I tell you what your mission does for your organization? It divides people. It attracts people who are like that and have a desire to have a mission like that, and it repels people who have no desire to be like that, and that is certainly not their goal or mission in life. So when you lay out the mission, you attract certain people and you repel people based upon what your mission is, what you're trying to accomplish. Another area, number two, is priorities. Whatever your priorities are in your organization and whatever the priorities of the leaders happen to have, can I tell you something? That's the kind of priorities that the people are going to have. For example, when I gave the illustration under one of the other laws about the CEO that looked at the people and says, if anybody in my company asks you to do anything wrong, here's my personal phone number, you call me. Do you know what he was doing? The law of magnetism was operating. You know what he was? He was attracting people of integrity. He was attracting people who want to do the right thing. He was attracting people who said, yes, I will call you if somebody asks me to do something wrong. He was going for a high integrity, high character type of person with that kind of statement. It's the law of magnetism. So your mission attracts certain people. Your priorities, and it has much to do with the kind of person you attract. Number three, age. I found that people group together by age to a certain extent. And I've found that you get into certain organizations, they basically age with what the leaders are. And you get into some companies and they just got a bunch of young people that are just kind of going after it as fast as they possibly can. And age has a lot to do with the type of person that you attract to yourself. Number four, your values. Oh my, this is huge. The values that you have are going to do a lot with what kind of a person that you're going to attract to your organization. For example, a high value to me is adding value to people. That's a huge value. That's right at the top for me. If somebody says, John, what do you want to do in life? It's very simple. My life is very simple. I want to add value to you. I want to come alongside of you. I want to write books that add value to you. I want to do lectures and teaching and tapes that will add value to you. I want to add value to you. My greatest goal is to take people to a higher level than they could ever get on their own. That's my desire. What kind of people do I attract? Well, I can tell you what kind of people I attract. People that want to add value to others. I don't attract selfish people. I don't attract people who are kind of basically in it for themselves and taking the journey by themselves and hoping to, at the end, to have just some huge reward that they give only to them. I don't attract selfish type people. Why? Because it's a value. The law of magnetism says you attract basically who you are. Number five, another area I have found is to be very true, is in the area of background. A lot of times we attract people that have the same kind of background. Maybe it's we grew up in the same area, and so therefore we have common roots geographically. Perhaps we had common roots as far as our education, or perhaps the kind of business we're in. But basically we attract people a lot of times based on our background. And then finally, the other indicator of the law of magnetism that's a key area of attraction is attitude. You attract people based on your attitude. Can I tell you what you've never found? You never found an organization where you've got a great attitude at the top and a poor attitude at the bottom. You don't see that. Attitudes come in. You know what? People with bad attitudes, they don't even want to be around people with good attitude. It's that too much cheery stuff. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of weighs on them after a while. You know, you're just way too happy for me. You know, you're too excited about life. You know. So people with a bad attitude, they're not attracted to people with a good attitude. They don't even want to be around. I love a guy said, well, if you have a great attitude, you'll attract everybody. I said, no, you won't. You'll make some people sick. Felt like to say, I can't stand that person. They're happy, they're enjoying their life, they're going somewhere. Who wants to be happy, enjoy their life, and go somewhere? Could I have another cup of coffee, please? Now, those are areas that if you possess will bring a sense of magnetism to you, and you'll attract like people. It's just an absolute fact. So look at your organization and ask yourself, who are we? Because by answering the question who you are, what you value, what is your mission statement, what your attitude is, what all that stuff is. And I would encourage you, this is a great exercise for you to do as a group. Once you get, quote, your DNA, your personality as a company or a culture, once you have figured it out, just understand this. You're going to attract a whole bunch of people just like you. The 10th law of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is the law of connection. And the law of connection says, leaders touch a heart before, and maybe you need to underline that word before, they ask for a hand. In other words, when you really understand the law of connection, you realize that you have to touch a person emotionally and relationally before they'll ever begin to do things in a physical sense with you. You've got to touch their heart before you ask for their hand. This is a tough law for a lot of leaders because leaders are action-oriented, and a lot of times leaders don't want to mess with the relationship stuff. They don't want to mess with the connection stuff. They just say, look, here's where I'm going, and I want you to go with me, and let's go. And they don't want to do what I call the homework and the preparation needed for relationships. But let me just say this to you. I think to a great degree, relationship is leadership. Let me put it this way. People won't go along with you if they cannot get along with you. You don't want to take a trip with somebody you don't like. You don't want to take a long journey with somebody that you don't get along with. And every one of us know what it's like to work with somebody that we don't get along with. And you know, the good news is that you can work with them. The bad news is you don't want to take a vacation with them. Isn't that right? How many of you know at least one person that you don't want to take a long trip with? Oh, yeah. How many of you are seated beside that person right now? Don't raise that hand. Those second questions I ask you are always IQ questions. Keep your hand down. We all know what it's like. Every one of us know what it's like to have to work with people we don't care for. And that whole relationship, it just doesn't mesh. Now, here's what I'm saying. Leaders understand that they've got to connect with the heart before they can ask the hand. Going back to when I was doing the law of influence, going back to that for a moment, the second level in the laws of influence or the laws of leadership, the second level was the permission level, and that is people do things with you because they like you. So you have to begin to become likable. Starts with your appearance. Starts with your face. Don't you just look at some people sometimes and just say, I don't care to meet them? Huh? Haven't you been on an elevator and somebody gets on the elevator and you just look at it? You just look at them. They don't say a word. They haven't said one word. They haven't said a word. Do you know one? They just get on the elevator and just look at them and just say, oh, thank God I'm not going home with them. And it amazes me, especially leaders who have to be in the people business, it amazes me how many of those leaders aren't good with people. And I just want to go up to them and I say, man, you don't have a shot at this. You're never going to be successful as a leader because people don't relate to you, not connected with them. That's why, 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a book called Becoming a Person of Influence. And I wrote the book, Becoming a Person of Influence, and people look at it and they say, it's a relationship book because I talk about 10 ways to influence people. Well, it is a relationship book. You know what it really is? It's a soft leadership book. It teaches you how to influence others and relate to them because, again, if you do not touch your heart, you will not be able to ask for a hand. Now, this is an area that I love because I love communication and I love connecting. And just let me try to get real practical with you and help you walk through this area of connecting with people. And I would want you to know, before I give you the list, I would want you to know that I think connecting with people is a leader's responsibility. A lot of times I'll run to leaders and they'll say to me, well, my people my people aren't coming along. And when I was a kid, I used to go down to General Electric where they had the shipping area, where trains were coming in and unloading stuff and they're picking up stuff. And I'd love to just go out there and sit and watch the trains come in and couple and uncouple the cars and the whole deal. And you know what I always noticed? I always noticed that the locomotive always was responsible to back up and couple with the other cars. I never one time saw a boxcar running around the track saying, man, where's the locomotive? I know. No. If you're the leader, and by the way, when they would come back in and they would hit those cars, that didn't mean that they connected with those cars. They didn't connect with those cars just because they hit them. Just as you don't connect with people just because you had a meeting. They had to learn to couple those cars. Once in a while I'll run to a leader and I'll say, well, I had a meeting with him. We had lunch. Hello. You got to connect. You have to couple. So how do you connect with people? Number one, connect with yourself. The first thing to do is to be able to connect with yourself. Let me just put it this way. If you have never connected emotionally with yourself, you'll never be able to connect emotionally with someone else. You have to know yourself. You have to accept yourself. You have to love yourself. You can't love someone else if you don't love yourself. You can't relate to others if you can't relate to yourself. If nobody's home internally, there'll be no one home externally. Connect with yourself. Number two, share with openness and sincerity. What I have found is that it's just best to be open and sincere with people. It develops a sense of trust. Number three, live your message. Very simple. What you ask your people to do, do it. In fact, a leader should never ask his or her people to do something that leader is unwilling to do themselves. Remember, be a tour guide, not a travel agent. Don't send people, take people. Live your message. Flesh it out. They ought to be able not only to hear your words, they ought to be able to see your life. And let me tell you something. Hearing your words and seeing your life ought to be the same. And when what you say and what you do, when your behavior and your words match, it's just tremendous what you can do as far as leading and developing people. Number four, know your people. Very simple. You cannot lead people until you know them. You have to know what the keys to their life is. You have to understand what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You got to spend, and the only way that you can know your people is to spend time with your people. That's why leaders walk slowly through the crowd. What was it? Many years ago. Management by walking around. Boy, that became huge, didn't it, across America? But it's just a trick. It's a great concept. Still is. Walk slowly through the crowd. Spend time with your people. Understand them. Get to know who they are. Know their strengths, their weaknesses. If I could stop right now and ask you as a leader, what are the key points of the people that you lead? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they do well? What do they love? What do they buy into? What don't they buy into? What are their values? If I could ask those kind of questions, would you be able to give me answers, or would you just be given kind of shots in the dark on your people? See, leaders understand that you don't lead everybody the same way. People have different strengths, different giftnesses, different desires, different goals. And the great leaders understand the only way you can lead people effectively is by knowing them well. So know your people. Number five, communicate on their level. Don't communicate on your level. Come down to where they are. Understand what they're thinking. The expression I have is put the cookies on the lower shelf. Let everybody have one. Don't be an educator. An educator takes something simple and makes it complicated. Be a communicator. Take something complicated and make it simple. Get it down to their level so they can understand it and grab hold of it. Number six, give yourself totally to the people and the message. Whatever your vision is, whoever your people are, give yourself to both. Don't be a leader that buys into the vision and not the people. A leader that buys into the vision and not the people will be a leader who has a vision only for himself or herself. And don't be a person that buys into the people and not the vision. The good news is you have great relationships, but you aren't going anywhere. Buy into the vision and the people. Both are essential. Number 7, believe totally in the people and the message. Believe totally in the message and the vision and the people. Here's what I love, and I think it's very true. It's wonderful when the people believe in the leader, but it's even more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. Be a leader that believes in your people. Number 8, share how the vision or the message has touched you. The only way that anyone else will buy into the lesson, the message, the vision, the mission that you're on, the only way they'll ever buy in it is if you say, look, here's what it's doing for me. Here's the areas of change I'm bringing in my life to bring this vision to pass. Always let them see how it has positively affected you before you ask them to let it positively affect them. And number 9, offer direction and hope. Come alongside of them and offer direction and hope. And remember this, leaders are dealers in hope. Somebody comes up to you and say, what are you? You say, I'm a hope dealer. A classic example of the law of connection is Herb Kelleher, the CEO of Southwest Airlines. Several years ago, I think it was in USA Today, I read these following words, and I want you to see them because this is classic law of connection. Thanks, Herb. This was paid for by his 16,000 employees on Boss's Day. Thanks, Herb, for remembering every one of our names, for supporting the Ronald McDonald House, for helping load baggage on Thanksgiving, for giving everyone a kiss, and we mean everyone, for listening, for running the only profitable major airline, for singing at our holiday party, for singing only once a year, for letting us wear shorts and sneakers to work, for golfing at the Love Classic with only one club, for out-talking Sam Donaldson, for riding your Harley Davidson into Southwest headquarters, for being a friend, not just a boss. Happy Boss's Day from each one of your 16,000 employees. That's the law of connection. The law of the inner circle. Law number 11 is the law of the inner circle, and the law of the inner circle says a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. Your potential and my potential is going to be determined by those closest to me. Teddy Roosevelt said in your notes, the best executive is one who has the sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling while they do it. Lou Holtz, who's a good buddy, one time said, John, here's the way it works in coaching football. If you've got a bad coach but a good players, you'll have a losing season. He said, if you have a good coach and bad players, you'll have a losing season. But he said, if you have a good coach and good players, you'll have a winning season. And said, John, remember, it takes a good coach. In other words, it takes a good leader, and it takes good players. And a good leader is no substitute for a bunch of bad players. And a bunch of good players are no substitute for a bad leader. You got to have them both. Now, the law of the inner circle is one that I'm very passionate about, and I want to do a good job sharing this law with you. You see, I was 40 years of age, kind of not having a midlife crisis. I didn't have one. I didn't really have time for one. But I was 40 years of age, and I began to ask myself this question: why is it that I'm not achieving all that I want to achieve? I got in a couple of days of really kind of melancholy. I was a little bit frustrated. The reason I was so frustrated was because I just hadn't hit all of my goals. And when I began to ask myself why I didn't hit my goals, I looked at myself and I knew I was very disciplined. I worked hard. I have some gifts in the areas that I'm working. And I thought, by now I should be a lot better than I am. And then it hit me. The reason I wasn't hitting all my goals was because I didn't have a good team around me. That's when the law of inner circle really came to me. I formed this law at the age of 40 because all of a sudden I realized that if I was going to really reach my potential, I was going to have to reach my potential with people. Now, when I wrote the book, The 17 Laws of Teamwork, the first law of the law of teamwork is the law of significance, and the law of significance says one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. It's a great law. In other words, you can't do anything significant by yourself. So therefore, if you're one of these kind of people that likes being a self-made man, so once in a while people say, I'm a self-made man. They want me to congratulate them. I always look at them and say, oh, that's too bad. I hate to hear that. Because if you've made everything yourself, you haven't made much. You see, the law of the inner circle says, if you really want to achieve great things, you've got to bring people around you, this inner circle around you, these key players that really make a difference. And one of the things that's so exciting about team leadership, and one of the reasons I love teaching 21 laws is, as I've shared with you before, not everybody does all 21 laws well. And going back to an illustration I used on the law of navigating, if Chuck is a good navigator and I'm not a good navigator, team leadership begins to be huge. And what I need to do is I need to understand each one of my players and what their strengths are. And if this truly is my team, if this is my team, I'm going to tell you right now, this team is going to make me or they're going to break me. Isn't that true? Think about the people closest to you right now. They're either your greatest asset or your biggest liability. And every once in a while I run the leaders and say, man, I'm telling you right now, I can't get my team to come along and they're not doing this. I mean, by the way, it's not any fun. Is it any fun to hit the ball and drag Charlie, hit the ball and drag Charlie, hit the ball and drag Charlie, hit the ball and drag? After a while, don't you just want to hit Charlie? Again, in the laws of teamwork, in the 17 laws of teamwork, one of the laws is the law of the chain. And the law of the chain says that the weakest link determines the strength of your team. You've got to have a team around you. You've got to have an inner circle. And the question I would ask you is a very simple question. Look at the 5 or 7. I'm not talking about everybody in your organization. I'm talking about everybody in your department. But look at the 5 or 6 key people. And ask yourself a very valid question. Are these people adding value to me? Or are they pulling me down? This is huge. Are they an asset? Or are they a liability? I've often said to your inner circle, they carry around the company, they carry around 2 buckets. One has water and one has gasoline. And a little fire problem, a spark of contention breaks out in your organization, your department or something, and they run over and they got these 2 buckets, one with water, one with gasoline. And how they use those buckets determine what kind of a problem you have when they're done with it. I mean, a lot of them, they'll take that water and put it on that fire and it all smolders out. And it's a little puff of smoke and it's nothing. And you get done and you say, oh my goodness, that was no big deal. Or haven't you had people in your inner circle? They took that bucket of gasoline and they saw this little spark of fire. And they threw that bucket of gasoline on, and when they got done, the city fire department was out. I've seen it happen many, many times. I would say this about your success as a leader. Your ability to have a good inner circle around you and your ability to train them and develop them is absolutely essential to your success. So let me share with you some inner circle commitments that you need to make. Let me share with you some commitments that you need to make as a leader to get your inner circle to where it needs to be. First of all, I would make this inner circle commitment to team leadership. No longer become or be the Lone Ranger. Say, I'm going to lead, but I'm going to lead with people. I'm not going to just lead people, I'm going to lead with people. I'm going to develop me a leadership team. And remember, as you develop your leadership team, as you develop your inner circle, they're not there to compete with you, they're there to complete you. They're here to make you better. And by the way, you're there to make them better. You should be adding value and completing them just as they're adding value to you and they're completing you. Make a commitment, an inner circle commitment to team leadership. Secondly, Evaluate your leadership team. Since the inner circle makes or breaks you, be honest in your evaluation of them. Look at them realistically. Assess them. Hold them accountable. You cannot afford to have people in your inner circle that aren't performing with excellence, that aren't giving it their best shot, that are kind of slacking on you. You can't afford that. You can't afford that to do your inner circle, and you can't afford to let them do that to you. So you've got to evaluate those people that are closest to you. And for years, I've used a grid in evaluation. It's a simple one. It doesn't need to be yours, but I'll just share it with you. It's in your notebooks. When I'm evaluating people to either come into my inner circle who are in my inner circle, I evaluate, first of all, what I call potential value. What is their potential? Many times these are people who have been able to raise themselves up, and they show great potential because if you can raise yourself up, you probably can raise others up also. I look, secondly, at positive value. Those who just lift and raise up the organization, the morale of the organization. Is it not true? Do you not know some people? Do you not know some people that they just come into the company and they just suck air out of everybody? You know what I'm talking about? Don't you? Are there just some people you just see them coming? They just open the door and you see them and they're saying, oh, they're coming to me. I'm about to give up energy. Huh? I'm about to feel what it's like when you're dying. And aren't there other people? They just walk in the room and your energy automatically goes up. Wow. I found out a long time ago there are two kinds of people in life, lifters and leaners. Wow. And lifters have the ability to just lift me up and help me to go to another level. And leaners, oh my goodness. You know, the leaning in the beginning isn't bad, but when it's after about 3 years, you say it's a lot of weight to carry. So I look at their potential value, I look at their positive value, I look at their personal value. I'm talking about myself now. I'm looking at what personal value are they to me. Can I look at their life and say, here is how my leadership is enriched because they are part of my life? I look, fourthly, at production value. Do they have the ability to raise up others? Do they have the ability to produce? And then the final evaluation for me is what I call proven value. Have they done it for so long that there is a trust element here now that they just always come through? I'm getting ready for a big assignment, and so yesterday I sat down with my assistant, Linda Eggers, and I kind of shared with her what I needed her to do. In fact, she's doing it right now in her office because it's a large assignment for a group of business people that I'm going to meet with for the next 2 days. Last night, I don't know, probably 9:30, she's over at my home office, and we're going through it one more time, and she says, John, I not only have done what you've shown me, and she gives it to me, but then she said, I realized what you wanted to have accomplished with it, so she said, I did it this way. And she just took what I had given her to a whole new level. And I said, Linda, one more time, you just make me better than I am. One more time, Linda. One more time, as so many times. You've taken what I've given you, and you've just made it better. And you're going to make me look so good, and you're going to allow me to help so many people because you are a key player on my inner circle, and you have proven value to me. Make inner circle commitments. Inner circle commitments such as, I'm going to have team leadership, and then I'm going to evaluate my team. Another inner circle commitment I want you to make is that you're going to develop your leadership team. Make that commitment. I'm going to develop the people around me. I'm going to make sure that my leadership team grows. And here's why. If you grow your inner circle, you'll grow your business. Grow your people, grow your company. It always works that way. That's the law of the inner circle. Law number 12, the law of empowerment. And the law of empowerment says, only secure leaders give power to others. Only secure leaders give power to others. In your notes, the people's capacity to achieve is determined by their leaders' willingness and ability to empower. Let me illustrate. Every year, I spend time with my nonprofit organization, Equip, traveling internationally. And as I travel to many countries, I teach thousands upon thousands of leaders. What I have noticed, especially in developing countries around the world, is I've noticed that the person in power, the person that has a leadership position, instead of empowering others, and instead of sharing with others, and instead of including others and developing a leadership team, the person in a leadership position, instead of raising up people, in developing countries most often, they try to push down people. Let me illustrate. Come on up here for a moment. My name's John. What's your name?
David.
David, come on up here beside me. Let me just illustrate this with David. By the way, David, I wanted to pick out somebody good looking.
I'll go sit down.
No. No. I just looked around and said, I got to get a good looking guy for this. Okay, now, watch this, David. What I found is too many leaders, and by the way, I want to stop here for a moment, not only in developing countries, in America, I see this happen all the time. Leaders who have power and have position, taking somebody like David. Let's say I'm the leader, I got the power, I got the position. Here's what I see happening all the time, where we take them and we try to push them down. Okay, come on, David, cooperate.
I'm sorry.
David's theme song is I Shall Not Be Moved. So these leaders, they push them down. You follow me? And their whole thing is, I got to keep pushing my people down. I got to push them down. By the way, have you noticed something? While I'm pushing David down, what's happening to me? I'm going down with him. That's the way it always works, friend. Listen, if you're a leader and you push people down, you just go down with them. It's only a matter of time. Just as if I take David and I start developing him and I say, I'm going to lift him up and I'm going to get him up to a higher level. Now, notice now what happens? When I start lifting David up, what happens? I go up with him. Here's what I want you to understand as a leader. You either go up with your people or you go down with your people. And this idea of somehow I'm going to protect my position, I'm going to push people down. What we don't realize is it eventually is our downfall also. By the way, thanks, David.
Thank you.
You did a great job, didn't he, huh? Give him a hand. He did a great job. Okay, now. David, you and I have been practicing that for months, and boy, it worked out really well. Okay. Now. So you ask yourself the question. I ask myself this question all the time. Again, when I travel and I see this happening in other countries, I ask myself, why is it that the leader insists on somehow being way above his or her people and always is trying to kind of keep everybody, I don't know, they have this kind of like, the best way I explain it, almost like a king of the hill mentality. And I got to be on top. Why is it that people fail to empower people and give them the energy and the permission and the environment that will help them to be growing and be great leaders themselves? I think there are several reasons we need to discuss quickly. One of the reasons I think we fail as leaders to empower others is insecurity. You show me an insecure leader and I'll show you somebody that will never empower anybody. In fact, let me tell you what's never happened. An insecure leader has never empowered anyone because they're too insecure. They're afraid that somebody else will get their job. What happens if I give somebody a little bit of empowerment and they do a better job than me? Whoa! And that insecurity constantly causes leaders to keep pushing people down. Let me just say this, and then I'll move on real quickly, because I'll start to show my bias, and I don't want to do that. One of the worst days of your life is to be in any organization where you have to follow an insecure leader. Trust me. It's like walking handcuffed through a landmine. It's only a matter of time till they'll blow you and them up together. Insecurity. Insecure leaders do not empower other people. Another reason I think we fail to empower others is a desire for job security. I do know people who, I don't think they're insecure, they just want to keep their job. They're saying, well, I don't know if I want to train and empower somebody, they may take my job away from me. Now, what I've always taught, especially in my inner circle, who I have taught all to be leaders, I've always told them it's their job to work themselves out of a job. My thing is equip and train people to take your job. And let me tell you something. If you equip somebody to take your job and you train them, here's the way this works. If you work your way out of a job, I'll give you another one. I've had key inner circle members that have had 7 or 8 positions in a period of maybe 13, 14 years with me. I mean, they've gone from this one to another because they train and empower, and then they've done that, so they don't need to run that, so they go over and run another area. I have a wonderful friend of mine who's been with me for over 20 years, Dan Ryland. Little that man, I bet you he has worked himself out of at least a dozen jobs in 20-plus years of being with me. You know what I say to my staff is, you work yourself out of a job, I'll give you another one. In fact, here's the way it works with me. If you can't work yourself out of a job, you're smart, aren't you? I'll take the one away from you. You'll lose the job if you can't train someone else to do the job. But I think sometimes we just don't want anybody else to take our job. Another reason I think we fail to empower people is a bad experience. In other words, I'll bet everyone in the studio, and I'll bet everyone listening to this leadership training tape, I'll bet every one of us have had a time where we've trained somebody. I mean, you've worked hard, you poured your life into them, you trained them, and then it turned out bad. They didn't do a good, they left the company, they left you, they hurt you, they backstabbed you, they did all kind of, how many of you have ever had a bad experience trying to train someone? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, 100% in the studio. How many of you are sitting beside that person today? Now, see, you've learned. Now your hand doesn't go up anymore. You know better. You know better. Okay, now, a lot of times, just a bad experience. I've had that happen to me. I can remember as a young leader taking a very promising young guy, younger than me. I was already in my 20s, so he was really young. And pouring my life into him for about 3 years, and only to have him just mess up. And I remember I said to myself, I'm never going to do this again. I am never going to do this again. I'm done training people. In fact, I thought, when I hire people from now on, instead of pouring my life into them, I'm going to keep them at a distance. And for the next 6 months, when I brought a couple people on my staff, I kept them at a distance. And then one day I realized that if you don't allow a person to get close to you, and if you don't pour your life into them, the good news is they probably won't hurt you. But the bad news is they'll never help you. They'll never be able to come alongside of you and truly alliance and partner with you. But a bad experience. A lot of times we just have bad experiences. Say, I'm never going to do that again. And so therefore, we fail to empower people. Number 4, ego. Just ego. Just the fact, hey, a lot of times we don't empower anybody because we want all the credit. Isn't that true? Yeah, we think, my goodness, I empower this team. They're going to get some of the credit, and I'd like to have it all. Hello? Huh? Number 5, codependency. I think sometimes we are codependent with others. In other words, basically what we're saying is I need you and I want to keep you close to it. If I empower you, I might free you up to let you go. And I put in there because it's a true statement, you can't lead people if you need people. Now, don't take that statement to the extreme. Don't go back and say, boy, I don't even like people. This is awesome. I have the first quality of being a great leader. No. If you need them, and the reason you can't lead them if you need them is if you truly need them in a codependent way, you'll never make the hard decisions because you need their approval too much. By the way, as I close out the law of empowerment, I just want to say to you that this has been a law that has been very important to me since I've turned 50 and now much older. I've come to the conclusion for me, now this is just for me, that my greatest joy and my greatest fulfillment is in adding value to others. And I can say at this stage of my life, other people's success brings me more joy than my own success. And I don't mean that wrong because I still like to hit the ball out of the park. And every once in a while I get the chance to hit the ball out of the park. But to train and teach someone else to do that, it's a greater joy. You know what? I kind of know what I can do. But when I pour my life into others and I see what they can do, it begins to compound as far as the return. It begins to, instead of to add, it begins to multiply. And so I kind of close this law by saying that I have found that adding value to people is very important to me. And I basically try to guide my life so that every day I can positively take people to another level. And I found three things about adding value to people that is just absolutely huge. And the first thing I found about adding value to people is this, that you can only add value to people if you truly value people. If I don't value you as a leader, I'll manipulate you instead of motivate you. And it's never right. So the only way that I can ever add value to you is truly value you. And secondly, I only can add value to people when I know and relate to what they value. I've got to know and relate to what they value because I can't add value to them if I'm on a different page. I've got to know what their interests are and what their goals and mission and passion is. Those are important. So I can only add value to you if I know and relate to what you value. And thirdly, I can only add value to you and to others when I make myself more valuable. In other words, I've got to keep growing. Because if I don't keep growing, I cannot pass on to you what I'm learning. Because you cannot give what you do not have. So how do I stretch you? By stretching myself first. How do I add value to you? By adding value to myself first. How do I grow you? By growing myself first. By making myself more valuable, then I can add value to you. And that's what the law of empowerment is all about. Taking people to a higher level than they would have ever gone on their own. But because you willed it and gave permission to it, you empower them. Law number 13, the law of reproduction. The law of reproduction says, we teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are. And I'm going to talk to you in this law about reproducing what you are. Now, isn't this interesting? This is a cousin. The law of reproduction is a cousin to the law of magnetism. Remember, the law of magnetism says who you are is who you attract. Now we're saying in the law of reproduction, it takes a leader to raise up a leader. Now, the law of magnetism is kind of like the front end. The law of magnetism says, here's how you draw potential leaders to you. The law of reproduction is the back end. The law of reproduction says, once you've drawn these potential leaders, here's how you develop these potential leaders. We're going to begin talking now, and as you go through the laws of leadership with me, one of the things you're going to realize is that as we get closer to the end of the laws, we get more into reproducing ourselves. The first laws deal with how do I develop myself and how do I become the person I should be, those kind of things. And then we begin to shift from me as a leader to how effective I am as a leader to reproduce other people within my life. Here's what I know. We teach what we know. We reproduce what we are. It takes a leader to know a leader. What I've observed is that leaders can pick out potential leaders better than non-leaders. Are you with me? Because they have an understanding of what it's like to be a leader. So it takes a leader to know a leader. Secondly, it takes a leader to show a leader. In other words, it takes a leader not only to be able to know one or define one, and so therefore the people that find potential leaders are leaders themselves, but it also takes one to model or to show or to be an example for another leader, because the greatest motivational principle in life is people do what people see. So if you're a leader, guess what? You can teach leadership to others. That's why it's impossible for non-leaders to raise up leaders. It's impossible for non-leaders to train leaders. A lot of times I'm asked the question that why is not leadership taught more in the educational, academic, college type of setting? And the reason I say that is because there aren't a lot of leaders there. And if you can teach a leadership course, but if you're not a leader, you can't reproduce leaders. It takes one to know one. It takes one to show one. And finally, it takes one to grow one. How do you grow potential leaders? By being one yourself. People do what people see. So in this law, I want to talk to you about reproducing leaders. I did a survey about 2 years ago that was very important. I was doing leadership conferences, and I asked leaders all over the country, I asked them this question. I said, what's the number one influence on your leadership life? In other words, if you could go back and say, I am a leader because, and fill out the blank, what would you say? 5% of the people that said, I am a leader because, said, I am a leader because of a crisis. In other words, something happened that somebody needed to lead, and they happened to be there, and because they had leadership intuitiveness and leadership leanings within them, they rose up, took the challenge, led, saw that they could lead, and pretty soon kind of became the leader of the pack. So about 5% said they became a leader because of a crisis. 10% said they became a leader because they had what they called natural leadership gifts. They had the leadership leanings that I'm talking about. Now, here's what's interesting. 85% of the people that I talked to in the conference and did the survey with on how and why did you become a leader said, I became a leader because another leader put me under their wing and mentored me. In other words, they came into contact with another leader, which goes back to the law of reproduction, and the law of reproduction says it's an absolute fact that it takes a leader to reproduce a leader, it takes a leader to know a leader, it takes a leader to grow a leader, it takes a leader to show a leader, it takes all those things. Leaders beget leaders. Now, here's the question. If leaders beget leaders, then why is it that I have come to the conclusion that only about 5% of the leaders reproduce other leaders? Because I've watched this happen. I've seen leaders who never reproduce other leaders. What most leaders do is they just have followers. They lead and people follow. Why is it that so few leaders empower other leaders, reproduce other leaders, develop other leaders, raise people up higher than themselves? Well, there are several reasons. Number one is they're insecure. Again, insecurity keeps us from empowering people. Number two, they spend too much time with followers. They just spend way too much time with him. And a lot of times they spend time with him because, let me just stop here for a moment. You know what followers do versus lead? If you lead followers, they'll stroke your ego all the time. They'll tell you how good you are, and you'll believe that foolishness. You know what I mean? And they'll say, oh, I couldn't make it without you, and oh, you believe all that, you know. And followers just stroke your ego all day. Leaders won't do that. Leaders are restless. They're saying, you're doing a good job leading, but can we hurry it up a little bit more? And could we take on a bigger challenge? And when are we going to? Leaders following leaders, their main goal isn't to thrill you. Their main goal is progress and success. They want to get to the top. Thirdly, this is so true. Followers are easier to find and lead than leaders. Boy, isn't that the truth. One of the reasons we have so many followers is because we like it, because followers just follow. Hut, 2, 3, 4, hut, 2, 3, 4. They just kind of get in line. You see, leaders, hey, they're hard to find. Oh, they're hard to find. They don't flock. Turkeys flock. Eagles don't flock. You've never gone outside and said, oh my goodness, I couldn't even see the sun today. There was just thousands of eagles just blocking the sun today. No. Eagles don't flock. Turkeys flock. They're hard to find. They're not only hard to find, they're hard to gather. When you find them, they're not waiting to join your team. One of the best advice I ever received in trying to recruit good people to my team was this advice. Find somebody that is already fulfilled in a job that they're doing with excellence and go after them. The person who wants a job, you don't want. The person who's looking for something is not the one you want. Hello. There's a reason why they're at the depot waiting for the train to come. Being available is not a qualification. So they're hard to find. When I say they're hard to gather, because when you ask a leader to join your team, they don't just say, oh, thank God, I've been waiting for a team to join. No, they ask questions. They say, where are you going? How long are you going to be there? What's it cost? Can I drive? They're hard to find, they're hard to gather, and they're hard to keep. because they're restless. And if you're not going somewhere, as soon as the train slows down, they're off. It's very important in being able to reproduce leaders, by the way, that you be able to find potential leaders, because your greatest odds of reproducing a leader is to finding a potential leader. Think about it for a moment. If you got two people in your organization, one's a potential leader, I mean, they've got some potential leadership gifts, and the other person has no leadership gifts. Wow, you want to spend your time with the person that has potential leadership gifts. So you have to know how to see them. You got to know how to find them. You see, when I go to the airport, there are two kinds of people that pick me up. If they don't know who I am and they have never seen me before, there are two kinds of people pick me up at the airport. The first kind of person, they just take a piece of paper and they put my name on top of it. And they stand somewhere where you deplane. They're standing over there on the other side of the hallway, and they got my name in the air. And they're just hoping I see their name. And they just got, they're talking to their buddy. They got their name in the air. The other day I was in the airport. Somebody said they had a name in the air. I didn't see my name in the air. I passed them, went right on to the hotel without them. They panicked, called me an hour later. Oh, you're here? Oh, thank God you're here. See, if all you do is stick a leader's name in the air and hope, you miss a lot of leaders. But there's another way to find leaders. Some people, when they come to the airport, they have one of my books. And they go to the back of the book, and it's got my picture. Hopefully it's a newer book. And they've got my picture. And you know what? They're by the line where the people are deploying, and they got this picture of me. And they know what I look like because they got my picture. And everybody comes on the plane, they're doing this number. You're John Maxwell. They come up and they shake my hand. How do you know I was John Maxwell? It's very simple. It was easy to find you because I had a picture of what you look like. That's huge. You see, if you have a picture of what a leader looks like, you can find potential leaders. If you can find potential leaders, you increase your odds of reproducing potential leaders. Number 4, sometimes we don't develop other leaders because they fail to recognize the value of developing leaders. They've never realized the compounding value that if you develop leaders, you grow your company, your profit, your bottom line is bigger. Everything wins when you have leaders in your organization. Number 5, leadership has been viewed many times as a competitive effort and not a cooperative one. So many times we've looked at people and thought of them as competitors. And you know where I think we got that? I don't know, this is just me. I think we got that from when we were kids. How many of you when you were kids played the game Follow the Leader? Boy, I played that game. And you know what the goal of the leader was? The goal of the leader was to do things that the followers couldn't do so that the leader could stay the leader. So I grew up in a culture that said, if you're really good, people will never be as good as you. And therefore, you get a lead. And so therefore, I protected leadership by being able to do things that others couldn't do. And I think it puts within us a competitive nature that we don't even understand. And as we grow up, we carry that over into even the corporate world in our life of saying, I still got to be able to do things that other people can't do, so I'll establish myself as the leader. The 14th law of leadership is the law of buy-in, B-U-Y. Buy in. The law of buy-in says people buy into the leader, then the vision. When I hold leadership conferences many times, a leader of an organization will come up to me and they'll say, John, I've got this huge vision, got this big dream, just about to share it with my company, about to share it with my department. And they'll ask me the question, all the time they'll ask me this question, what do you think? Do you think that my people will buy into my dream? Whenever they ask me the question, I say, let me ask you a question. Have the people bought into you? Because if the people have bought into you as a leader, can I tell you something? There's good news. They'll buy into the dream. But if they haven't bought into you, can I tell you, they'll not buy into the dream. It's never happened where an organization has bought into the vision without buying into the visionary. So the first thing that you sell is not your dream. The first thing you sell is not the vision you have. The first thing you sell is yourself. Because when you can connect, goes back to the law of connection. When you can touch a heart, you can ask for the hand. In other words, when you can touch them relationally, when they have bought into you emotionally, when they like you, when you're at least on level number 2 on the 5 levels of leadership, when they have bought into you, then they'll buy into the dream. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to always sell yourself. And then you can sell your dream. But it's impossible to sell your dream if you haven't first sold yourself. You see, every vision is filtered through the messenger. So therefore, when I hear a vision or when I have a dream presented to me as a leader, it's an absolute fact that every one of those dreams and visions are filtered through who gives the dream and who shares the vision. I've often said it this way. The leader finds the dream and then the people. That's the way it works. As a leader, I have a vision or I dream, and I got this vision dream, and I say, okay, I've got to go find some people to fulfill it because I can't do it all myself because it's a bigger dream than I have. So the leader finds the dream and then the people. The people find the leader and then the dream. Most people go throughout life without the dream or the vision. So they have to find the leader that has a dream or a vision that's compatible with them. But in staying long enough to find out what the leader's dream is and what the vision of that leader is and where that leader is taking them, they also realize, I've got to buy into this person. I've got to like them. If I'm going to take a journey with them, I've got to relate to them. I've got to connect with them. They have to like me. They have to believe in me. They have to relate and connect with me. So the law of buy-in is absolutely huge because what we have to understand is that our job as a leader isn't to sell the dream first. Our job as a leader is to sell ourselves first. And with the selling of ourselves and the connecting with people, they connect with the dream. Again, how do I take the vision from me to we? The law of buy-in. If they buy into you, it will soon be their vision, not just your vision. You know, there are some questions, therefore, that I have to ask as a leader. The question is not only do I have a clear vision, the question that I need to ask is, do I love my people? Do I enjoy being around them? Do I have a good relationship with them? Do they love me? Do they enjoy being around me? Is it a good time when we're together? Because the leader, again, understands in the law of buy-in, there has to be the human connection before you can take them to a higher level. What I want to do to make this lesson real practical for you is I have what I call the buy-in process that I want to give you. I want to share with you what is the process that helps people buy into you as a leader and then buy into your vision. Here's where it starts. Number one, the people see the problem. In other words, there's a need that people sense and feel and understand, and they say, oh my goodness, we have a need or we have a problem. That's the first step to the buy-in process. There's just what I call the obvious need or the obvious problem. Step one. Step two, the leader sees the problem and the potential. Now, that's what distinguishes the leader from the follower. The follower sees the problem. In fact, the follower is frustrated and basically has no answers and basically thinks that his or her hands are tied, and so they're frustrated with the problem, but the leader sees the problem, but the leader also sees the potential. That's what makes a leader. Remember, leaders are dealers in hope. Where most people see the dead-end street, they see more than the dead-end street. So, one is the obvious need that there's a problem. Secondly, there's a leader who sees not only the problem, but the potential. Third, the leader has a plan. Now, this plan usually is a vision, but it's a plan. They not only see the problem, but they've got a plan on how to fix it. And in seeing this problem and seeing this plan how to fix it, remember, now they are beginning to be what I call tangible dealers in hope. It's one thing just to get up and say, it's going to be a better day. It's another thing to get up and say, it's going to be a better day, and here's why, and lay out a plan. One statement gives people hope for the moment. The second statement energizes and empowers them for the long run. So, there's a problem that's obvious. There's a leader who sees the problem but also sees the potential. And that same leader, thirdly, develops a plan of how this problem can be solved. Number 4, the leader believes in the people. As we studied in the law of buy-in, that you have to buy into the people before you buy into the vision. And by the way, that's two ways. The people have to buy into the leader before they buy into the vision, and the leader has to buy into the people before he or she can get them to buy into the vision. There's a buy-in on both sides. So this leader not only sees the problem, sees the potential, has the plan, but has bought into the people, which brings us to step number 5. The leader believes in the future. Not only does the leader believe in the people, the leader believes in the future, and basically, again, has great expectation of what tomorrow will bring. And step number 6. The leader shares this belief with the people. In other words, the leader gathers people around and says, let me tell you what I think can happen. Here's the plan. Here's what I believe is going to happen. Which brings us to step number 7. The people believe in the leader's belief. I've seen this happen time and time again. The people believe in the leader's belief. Even before, quote, they get it, they've got it. They bought in emotionally to the leader, and so therefore as they bought emotionally into the leader, they began to buy into emotionally the leader's plan, the whole process. Now, when those 7 things happen, the 8th thing is absolutely automatic. The people buy in to the leader. They just buy into the leader. Now, sometimes this gets to the law of respect, because the law of buy-in is a cousin to the law of respect. They're similar laws. They're different. One is based on emotional understanding and relationships. That's the law of buy-in. The law of respect is based on credibility and the ability to produce. So they're different, but they're cousins. Now, here's what I know. I can remember I was a leader of an organization several years ago, of which I followed an excellent leader who had been in that position for 27 years. You talk about taking time before people gave you respect or buy-in. For the first year and a half, all I heard was how good the last leader was. And you know what? He was that good. Instead of being jealous or instead of trying to pull him in, I bought into his leadership and talked about how good of a leader he was and how valuable he was to the organization, but I just kept doing my job with excellence. And what I found was this. Almost 2 years later, I began to sense the law of buy-in. Now, nobody got up one day and said, oh, by the way, John, law number 14, the law of the buy-in. There was no such law back then. I hadn't written the book. But I knew they began to buy into me. I knew they began to buy into me because they started coming to me and asking for leadership counsel. They began to initiate questions. And they also began to initiate affirmation. They began to talk to me about how I was helping them and how they realized where the organization was, and now the organization was so much better. And all of a sudden I realized, when you truly have the law of buy-in as a leader, you don't need to ask the people. They'll start coming forth. And they'll start giving you that buy-in. You'll know it because the people will share it.